Thank you very much. Over the past 4 years, companies usually ask us one question, and they ask us that question repeatedly. And the question is, how can we win? The companies are interested in customer satisfaction. The real question should be, what should we be doing as an organization to ensure that we are creating value for the customer? What are the things and activities that we need to be doing, just as we have shared in the Disney story, that enable the culture to be all engaged on customer satisfaction? And asking that question is very different than, how can we win? How can we win means it's a PR campaign and a beauty pageant, and we know that you care more about satisfaction than that. Because we have so many repeat winners, we know that many of you get this point. And what we do, and I'm just going to speak a little bit about the Service Hero Index report. The reports that we produce have a list of information that's very valuable to companies. And we know, because we have a lot of repeat customers, most of whom are winners, that the reports contain information that's valuable. And they help a company focus more on not just serving its customers, but serving them with a focus and an obsession on service excellence, really building a culture, because there's metrics in the reports that we produce, numbers and data, that allows companies to compare themselves to their competitors, to see changes over the years, to understand loyalty, to understand their image. And so, just a brief about our reports. The reports contain 4 data points in them. The first of which is, what is my image? We ask customers, what is the image of a company before you dealt with it? And companies that are leaders in service excellence always have a high image. They will not have a low image. I mean, just the nature of the beast. The second thing about these companies is that they have high overall satisfaction. So leading companies, and this information is available in our reports, know what their satisfaction is overall. They also know, and this is available, is what's the likelihood of somebody recommending the brand? So is the brand able to emotionally engage with a customer so that they will recommend it to their friends and family? And finally, how does this brand compare to competitors? So what does my brand today compare? Where is its position in the market? If it's the leader, how close is the second guy? And if it's not the leader, how much of a lag do we have between them? So all this information is available in the reports that we produce. And I can tell you from the customers that have been obtaining the reports, and they've been obtaining them year after year, we know that there's a lot of value in the reports because of that. Our mandate, because we are in the business of selling information, is to ensure that our information is 100% authenticated and clean. And so in order to do that, we do a lot of data quality checking from the start of our assessment period to ensure that that's the case. This year, we obtained a record 14,575 votes. But from those, we did so much statistical checking and testing, and we flagged records that we thought looked in any way suspicious, and they were removed. So our final data set is 10,719 assessments that we are 100% confident are clean representations of the consumers of each and every brand. And in each of the categories, we have very solid data sets. This year, our index is already open. I don't think that many of you are aware of that. As of January the 1st, until December 31st of 2014, the index is open to the public, which means your brands are being assessed, or we already have a very healthy number of assessments since the start of the year. So that means we are flagging any suspicious patterns all the time. And if we see them, that means that data set is removed. Let me begin to share, having said the background about what we've seen. We're really excited that we have seen a 3% improvement in customer satisfaction in Kuwait in the past 4 years that we've been measuring it. We started our assessment in 2010, and you'll see that the satisfaction has improved every single year. The reason that it's improving is that there's a very healthy economy in terms of competitiveness in Kuwait. And we know that companies are competing in the different categories and sectors, because we'll be sharing with you in a few moments where we've seen the improvement. But it's an indication of the health of the economy. It's also an indication of when you start measuring something, you'll see a positive trend. We don't think that this is necessarily sustainable. We don't necessarily say that next year we'll see another upsurge, but we know that over time it will be an increase in scores overall. Now I'm going to be sharing with you 3 things. The first is the service dimensions that we're measuring, and we measure 8 service dimensions, the key factors that relate to service. And then I'll be sharing with you some of the demographic information. How do different demographic groups see satisfaction? And then finally, what are the categories ranked in satisfaction and which categories lead compared to some of the others? So I'm going to start with the service dimensions. We measure 8 dimensions. And as you can see, the highest 3, those score above an 8, and we're rating them from 1 to 10. 10 is the perfect score. 2 of the highest 3 are a little bit superficial. So website and location, which is the look and feel of a company, a brand, a store, those are rating the highest. And that's because a lot of companies do spend a lot of time on the decoration of a store, on the look and feel of it, the window dressing, so to speak. The ones that are the lowest are value for money, which is in the 7.6 range, and then call center. We always see value for money and call center among the lowest. And value for money means that if I'm going to a restaurant and I've eaten there and I felt that the overall service and the quality of the food wasn't up to my standard, I'm going to rate them poorly for value for money, even if it's a fancy restaurant. So we know that it's an indication of the health of a brand. And that's, the fact that it's low means that there's a lot that the brand needs to do, but it's normal that value for money is going to be among the lowest indicators. Where we've seen improvement in these, or meeting expectations first and exceeding expectations, what this graph is showing you, the factors that are on the left-hand side that are showing negative scores, those are the service dimensions that are not meeting what customers expected. And so you'll see the biggest negative gap is value for money. So customers were not satisfied by that. They had an expectation that was much higher than what they actually received. So they ended up paying more than they thought they should. And so it's an indication of where to improve. The same for reliability, that's the second lowest one. And you'll see location and website, for example, are very positive. In other words, we're exceeding the expectation of a customer on these factors. So it kind of suggests that maybe we don't need to spend so much time on window dressing and spend more time on reliability and speed and creating a product that's worth the money spent. Now we'll look at the changes over the past 4 years, and you'll see all the dimensions have improved. So we've seen every single dimension, location through to call center, have improved since 2010. The biggest improvement has been in call centers. And call centers, we're only measuring them in these categories where they are very fundamental to the offering, such as in the mobile operator industry, or airlines, or banks. Those are industries, or ISPs as well, that require a website and require a call center. But call centers have improved their service, which is very positive for us to see that trend. We are also really excited about the improvement that we see on value for money, because I've already mentioned, value for money is really a very important indicator on the overall satisfaction a customer gets with a brand. So that improvement is positive. Now that we've seen the 8 dimensions, let's take a look at the demographic groups and what changes we see in that area. So first, we're going to look at gender, and women are easier to please. I know many men disagree here, but women are easier to please and more satisfied than men are. And I think from an earlier discussion this morning with Dr. Morgensen, that seems to be a trend internationally as well. The other factor that we've noted is on nationalities. Kuwaitis are the least satisfied of the demographic groups, and non-Arabs are the most satisfied. And specific to Kuwaitis, this is a demographic group where we're not even meeting their expectations. So we're falling below their expectations. For some industries, this might be a segment that they really need to focus on. And of course, in the reports, we show that we give the scores by industry and by brand. I mean, that information is all available for anyone getting the reports. The other factor that we also measure is satisfaction across age groups. And you'll see the 16 to 17-year-old age group is the most satisfied. This segment is not as demanding, not as sophisticated when it comes to service. It's easier to please, so it makes sense that the satisfaction is the highest for it. You see the one segment that we have an issue with and that we're falling below expectations for is the 30 to 39 age group. This is the group that probably has a family, is working, double income household, their time is tight, and so when they require service, they want service right the first time, fast and efficient. And so that's why this segment is scoring the lowest. And we see that older people generally have higher satisfaction. It could be a number of factors. They're more laid back, they're wiser, or it could be they're getting better service because they have white hair. So it's really a reflection of the culture. And then finally, we also looked at the education levels. And here we have a dichotomy. We have the lowest educated individuals in the country, the least satisfied. So somebody who has an elementary degree or below is the least satisfied, which means they're probably overwhelmed. They're probably going into a bank or a hospital or a telco, and they're overwhelmed. They need somebody to help take them through the transaction. The other extreme is the very high educated, people with a master's plus. Those also have the lowest satisfaction, but that is explanatory in the sense that they are generally more sophisticated in terms of what they want, and so it's harder to please them. And the highest satisfaction is high school holders. And when we're looking at loyalty, who are our most loyal customers? Who are the people that are going to likelihood to recommend their likelihood to recommend us is the highest? It's non-Arabs, it's females, teenagers, and then high school holders. And if you look at that list, for many companies and many segments, that's not the profile of customers that they want. And if you look at the ones with the lowest loyalty, it's Kuwaitis, age group 30 to 39, people with a high education level, and also males. And to me, on the right-hand side, I know for many companies that is the key demographic. That is the group that they need to be pleasing. And so we know that that's an area for companies to improve on. Now that we've looked at demographics and we looked at the 8 service dimensions, the last bit of information I'm going to share with you is looking at the categories. And I do want to reiterate and repeat, a lot of this information is available in the industry-specific industry reports that we produce, so you could see where you rank on each of those. In terms of looking at the categories, Kuwait scored a 7.92 overall on a 10-point scale. The highest scoring category of all is casual dining. It's been the king or queen of the categories for the past 4 years anyway. So that's always up there. But we've seen a little bit of turbulence here. The 2 other top categories used to be in the food industry, but no longer. Now we have clothes and home furniture being ranked 2nd and 3rd. We have the 2 banking sectors ranking also above the industry or the national average. The average of all the companies in Kuwait is banks, and at the very bottom is Islamic banks. And we have some of the food industry in this group. In the coming slide, we're looking at the categories that are below Kuwait's average. So these are industries that are ranking lowest. And you'll see at the very, very bottom, which are the 2 industries that have the lowest satisfaction of all, are private hospitals and mobile operators. And then ISPs are among their electronic stores. We've seen the mobile operator category in particular being ranked amongst the lowest for the past 4 years. And we know that there's a lot of competition among the 3 operators, and there's also a lot of customer frustration because the scores are not very strong in that category. In terms of looking at which categories are meeting or exceeding customer expectations, so the ones that are exceeding, that are doing better than what customers expect of them, the top there is retail banks. Any bankers out there, good job, because that means that you're doing a solid job in terms of understanding what your customers need. Home furniture is also up there, and then the 3rd is Islamic banks. And that's an industry that's been very interesting because there's a lot of competition, there's newer players, and that's pushing that industry upwards. And then you'll see some of the clothes and the restaurant sectors in that group. You'll see, for example, in the automotive industry specifically, you'll see new car sales is exceeding customer expectations, but then when we change the slide, you'll see that the car service side of the business is not. It's falling below expectations. And as an example, supermarkets is just meeting expectations, which suggests that the category that needs to work on improving them. These are the categories that are not meeting what customers expect of them. So it's suggesting the categories that really need to work on improvement. Very low score for mobile operators. There really is a lot of work in that area in understanding what it is that I need to do to earn customer loyalty, to earn customer satisfaction, which of the dimensions is affecting that. And again, because we are measuring all of that, we can tell you what's happening over the past 4 years. Same for hospitals and ISB. So these are the industries that are doing worse than customers expect of them. And you'll see car service is among them, whereas the car purchase part of it was exceeding expectations. And then finally, we're looking at something called the Net Promoter Score. And I know some people look at likelihood to recommend, and some people look at Net Promoter Score. And just as a reminder, the Net Promoter Score says that there's 3 types of customers: those who love us, those who are neutral, and those who hate us. And the score says, well, let me ignore the people who are neutral, and let me find out what is the net number of people that I have that are ambassadors. So if it's a positive score, if it's above 0, that means I have more ambassadors than I have detractors. But if it's negative, that means I have many more detractors or people who don't like me. The reason that this indicator is important because it's measuring what we consider word of mouth. So how much noise is in the market, positive or negative. So when we're looking at this score by industry, you'll see that the highest top 3 that have scores above 50 are casual dining, home furniture, and clothes. Those are really solid scores, above 51%. That means around 51% of their customers are ambassadors, and the rest are, there's much fewer detractors and much fewer neutral people. You'll see even supermarkets has a 33% score. And if you take a moment to think about this, I'm sure all of you go to restaurants, and if you think, at least I know from myself and I know from friends of mine, you tend to go to the same number of restaurants most of the time. You might try something new, but if you didn't like it, you'll go back to your favorite restaurant. And that's what NPS, or likelihood to recommend, whichever score you're looking at, measures the likelihood of you coming back to the same place that you've had a relationship with, that's been positive, and that's built some sort of emotional tie to you. So these are the industries that are doing well on NPS. And in terms of industries that are doing below the Kuwait average, you'll see that the lowest is, again, mobile operators, which we've already seen is falling well below expectations. The score for mobile operators, I do have to say, the industry has improved tremendously, the telcos, because in 2010, their score was negative. They had a negative NPS, which means they had much more detractors than they had loyal customers. However, there's been some improvement. And this is the average of all 3. We're not, we're taking all 3 equally and weighing that in these scores. Again, if you're interested in this information, talk to one of our team members about getting some of our reports. And so I've shared a lot of information with you right now. I've shared information about the dimensions, the 8 service dimensions, about gaps in them, about changes over the years. I've shared information with demographics, and finally on the categories. So what is the implication of all of this information? And what can we do with it? The first is, I'm going to take you back to the story of Disney World. The first is you need to be very, very focused and kind of religious about building a service culture. Really, religion is maybe a funny word to use, but faith. You have to have faith and belief in it and live it day in and day out and come out with statements like the happiest place on earth or the equivalent for each of your industries. The second is to identify which are the customer segments that I need to satisfy in my company, which are the ones that are falling below scores, that have poor scores that I need to focus on. On a national level, we said that they're the Kuwaiti group, the 30-39, and the educated, but that will differ from one industry to another. You also need to find out which of the service dimensions is driving satisfaction for me, which ones am I exceeding expectations on, which ones am I falling below expectations on, and then try to work on improving them. And then finally, you need to have a program in place that has key metrics that you're measuring, whether it's NPS or likelihood to recommend or overall satisfaction or comparison to an ideal. Any of the numbers that we have in the reports that you are also measuring, we really recommend that you do that. And the final slide and the final word of advice to you is a quote from Klaus Fornell, who is the founder of the American Customer Satisfaction Index. And he says that the most essential of economic assets is the health and strength of a company's relationship with its customers. The stronger that relationship, the stronger the economic survival of that company is. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. And it takes us